In the book of Genesis, there is a nested template. And a part of that template requires the numbers 7 and 3 to be repetitive. So in the Bible, we see those appear many, many hundreds of times, 7s and 3s. However, I'm going to suggest they appear a whole lot more than that. We just don't know how they're doing it. Sometimes they'll repeat a word in a paragraph 7 times, and you don't catch it unless you're very specifically counting and looking for it. So what I see now is that the Bible is rich with a lot of techniques used to hide things in there. But they're doing it with numbers. Everything that is in the story itself, to decode it, is there. And what I'm going to do in this video is what I call the 7 cluster. It's something that has emerged as I continue to study this. 7 is a significant one. Let's look at what a 7 cluster is. First of all, let's reestablish what that 7 and that 3 is. At the end of the 7-day creation, 7th day is said 3 times. And on the 7th day, God finished his creation, so God rested on the 7th day, and God saw that it was all good on the 7th day, or something to that effect. 7th day is said 3 times. As I interpret the 7th-day creation story, step 3 in there holds the idea that there are cycles and that there is cause and effect, and that's on day 3. So day 3, that is how life works. It unfolds. Everything cycles, and it's based in cause and effect. That's how we come about and how our life unfolds. We're just not aware of that. When it's time to become aware of that, this is what the template is there for, to teach us how we came about and how we interrupt our life the way it's going so that we can change the way our life is, so we can heal, so we can feel better. It's a self-healing path inward. Okay, so the 7 and the 3 are established right there at that point. That is the basic seed for what I'm going to call a garden of analogs. This story, this template is going to be repeated over and over again. Whoever nested this in there was incredibly accurate at keeping this on the template. They knew somebody was going to find this at some point in time. And here's all the material right on board. Okay, so the 7s are established there. Now, when we want to return to that point in the story, this is a point in time in our life where we are children still. We have not yet been exposed to experiences in the world and begin to judge them. So we're still kind of happy-go-lucky, yay, everything is good, I love everybody, I love everything, that time in our life. That is a point that day 7 refers to, naked, unashamed, in the Garden of Eden, all that. Yeah, you have to look through my videos. It gets too deep. Okay, so we want to keep, at each story, we're going to have to start somehow back at this point without sounding like we're back at this point. We can't keep using 7 and 3 all the time, although it's very predominant in the beginning of a lot of the stories. Job starts off with 3 daughters and 7 sons. That's just one I can think of off the top of my head. And I don't know if I'm being very clear here. As we start off in life, where we start off very happy, then first sin happens, we begin having life experiences, cyclical pain, we become attached to the earth, and by that I mean attached to the earth means we're living a physical life. Whatever we see is, we don't understand cause and effect. What we're observing when we see the physical life is the final manifestation of energy that's driving something. So we see that, we judge that, and we attach to that. So we become a part of a system that's in place without realizing we've done that, simply by looking at life and judging life. And that's what we're going to do. Presumably, we get to a point, that certain people get to a point where they go, wow, what happened to my life? I would like to interrupt this. So that's what the cycle is. It's continually starting out, I am okay. Life goes bad. I must heal myself. I feel better. However, something else comes up. I feel bad. I must heal myself. I feel better. However, and that's going to continue on and on. So as that pattern goes over and over again, they're hiding that in stories of people and places and dates and amount of things that they have with them. So the numbers are going to be obscuring that concept right there. The 7 and the 3. Now, there's so many of these, and it's repeated so many times, they have to create more analogs. 7 and 3 is not enough. They're going to need many, many analogs. So what they're doing is they cluster. Let's go find some 7 clusters. I've talked about this on previous video, but this one's going to go to a new place. So take a look at something here. So I've got Genesis in a Word document, and I go into a search in the navigation bar up here. And I've hit on something before that I looked at, and I thought, well, covenant sounds kind of, it's repeated a lot right there. I begin keying on things like that, repeating words. And of course, this is Noah. This is the covenant that God is creating with Noah after the flood. And if you look right there, you will see that covenant is repeated 7 times exactly. Right there in that act, if you're listening to this verbally and you're a kid, you're adding things up back then. You just learned right there, if you know the secret, that since covenant was said 7 times, that covenant also now means 7. So whenever somebody is establishing a covenant, they're establishing that point, that point back in time. So we add that to the list. Now we've got 7, we've got 3, we've got covenant. Let's move a little bit further down because there's another one as we get ready for Sodom and Gomorrah. All right, as we get down into the judgment pronounced on Sodom, we've got a righteousness verse that appears up there as the as it's all being set up. But as we get down into verse 22, so the men turned from there and went toward Sodom, while Abraham remained standing before the Lord. And when Abraham started talking, he's the one that started asking him this almost a staccato kind of a sounding thing that where the righteous appears. And if you count it, it's like, well, that's 7 times exactly. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. So righteous just became an analog for 7 as well. See how simple that is? All right, what I have here goes all the way back to Adam's descendants, to Noah and his sons. I left this in the past because I didn't understand what was going on. I called it a lineage that just means time goes on, which it seems to fit there, and that could be part of it. But there's more detail in here, and I knew that there was more, and I just didn't know what I thought it was part of a network or something like that. What I've done now is I've searched Genesis for 800 because I thought, that seems like it's appearing a lot here. Sure enough, it comes up exactly 7 times. Right here in all of Genesis, it appears right here in Adam's descendants to Noah and his sons. So with it being 7 times right there, and you see the very first one, 800 years, the next one is 807, then 815, 840, 830, 895, and then back to 800 by itself again. So it's almost as if the 800s by itself open and close it, and in between we add a 7. That's going to be 7, isn't it? 7 and 3. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 15 right there and say, all right, I'm going to call that another analog. 40? Yep, there it is. I know that's an analog. 40 days, 40 nights. 40 years in the desert. 40 days in the desert. 40 days on the mountain. 40, 40, 40 is always going to be the same thing. So right here, 40 is being established at that same point. And right here we have 30. And right here we have 90. And maybe this could be 95 and 95. It could be all 3 of them. But they're being established right there. So this is how they're growing analogs. Now, there's something that still is on the other end. Thus, all the days of Enosh were 905 years, and he died. Then there's a 910 years. Yeah, there's something different that I'm not quite sure of. That might be all there is to it. I don't know, but there might be something else in here. That is how we're going to find them, though, doing things like that. We would have to have them memorized. Okay, what we're looking at here is the list. I'm starting to collect those analogs. And Eden is what I've got there at the top, the day 7. This is the critical tie point. And this emerges from the first of the 2 creation stories. This one is the 7-day creation, where 7 is said 3 times. So what I've got here then in my list, the green ones I've confirmed, the black ones I suspect. So I've got 7, 3, both from that saying 7 3 times. Righteous, having been said 7 times at Sodom and Gomorrah. Covenant, 7 times with Noah. 40, we know that from the tie 7 days. In 7 days I will have it rain for 40 days and 40 nights, and after 7 days it rained for 40 days and 40 nights. So it's said twice there in a confirmation that 7 and 40 are the same. And then we see that emerge elsewhere. But further on that, in the Sodom and Gomorrah story, where the numbers are being asked, where the righteous, where the God is being questioned, if there are 50 righteous, will you destroy it? If there are 40, if they're for the sake of, and those numbers are numbers that I've added into it. That is one of the places where they are growing analogs. By turning right, by saying righteous 7 times, they've made righteous that number, and then they've made it the same mental space here on the template. The 7, the 3, righteous are all now the same place, and then the numbers they tie to it are also here. Now, the reason that's important downstream, what we're going to see is when people are certain ages, or when they've lived for this amount of time, or when they've got this amount of livestock, or different things like that, they're going to be pulling from this pool of analogs. And that is what I'm doing now, is finding these right here so that we can continue to unfold the stories downstream. Okay. I've got Canaan, naked, barren, famine. We'll leave it at that right now. But you see the 7, 3, righteous, covenant, 40 are certainly ones that we're going to look at right now. Okay, let me jump back over to this one for a second, and let's take a look at this. This is back to Adam's descendants, to Noah and his sons. We were just there. What I've done is I've searched 7, and what I see is that right here in this section, 7 appears 7 times. Down here at the bottom, we have something that says, thus all the days of Lamech were 777 years, and he died. Okay, we're pattern seeking, so watch this. Everybody can do this. We just have to look at it in a certain way. All right, we're going to go from that to, put these 3 together. I'm going to do that for you. Listen to this. Thus the heavens and the earth were finished in all their multitude. On the 7th day God finished the work that he had done, and he rested on the 7th day from all the work that he had done. So God blessed the 7th day and hallowed it, because on it God rested from all the work he had done in creation. If Cain is avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech 77-fold. Thus all the days of Lamech were 777 years. Okay, we're not looking for what is different there. We're looking for what is the same. And what we see that is the same there is very clear. 7 is said 3 times in some form. 7 is said 3 times in succession in each one of those areas. So 7 is said 3 times, making 7 3 again. And how many times does it happen? 3 times. They're putting in lots of clues. We just have to understand that they're decoding them using memory and mind. Something we have mind involved, but not the memory. Not as much as them. Okay, watch how they maintain this in other stories. I go downstream to Leviticus, and I begin reading, and of course I don't see those same numbers, but as I go through here, I see tent of meeting. And as I'm reading through, I see that's something at the beginning of this story that shows up 3 times. So I do a quick search, and I find that tent of meeting shows up a total of 43 times in Leviticus. And it starts off in the beginning with those 3 right there. So tent of meeting is now an analog for the same 3-7 place. And guess what? They repeated it 40 times throughout the story. So they've taken the 3 and the 40, both, from that analog pool, and they're still combining them. They're still pointing them together. Remembering this is important because they don't have the Bible like we do. They have stories one by one that they know by memory, unless somebody's reading it from something for them. So these are memorized stories individually. You're going to have, if each one of them has the same template in there, and you need to find your way through it, you need to navigate that template, they put the clues necessary for each one of them. It's always the same template, only the story, the carrier story sounds different. Anyway, so that'll continue throughout. All right, I'm going to pop up a few of those to show, those are the kind of the easier ones to see how they start off simple with the clusters. but they can get big and spread out like the 3 and the 41. And that took something different. The only reason I spotted that is because I've read a lot of different things, and I recognized that tent of meeting as being the mind place right up here where we're supposed to meet and do all of that. That's being established up front. And that is common. You would find it in Babylonian material. Let me get my book. I misquoted it on a different video. Oops, there's something different in there. This one here is Anderuna. Tablet 1, the Enuma Elish. Do you know that one? Tiamat is the early self. That's the early Eve representation that has sinned and has gone bad. They're carrying it in a different way. And she was bothered by all of their activity within Anderuna. The activity within Anderuna is the activity in the mind. It's the meeting place of the gods. And I recognize that tent of meeting is that place. So I knew that to begin with. When I read that, I was like, where have I seen that? Babylonian stuff. Oh, let me look. It looks like there's 3. Let me do a search here. 43. Wow. So you see how cumbersome that is. It is incredibly cumbersome and error-prone and reliant upon somebody to just read through this stuff and go, something sounded weird right there. Let me just go search and see, start punching in numbers and see what comes up. Yeah, it's not very scientific. It's a data gathering process, but trying to figure out what they're doing. This is 3,500-year-old puzzles. There's just so much more to it that I'm not seeing. I can see those grids to a degree, but the bigger stuff like this, I knew something kept going off in the distance, but you can't see it until you start doing this, and it starts falling into place a lot more. And you realize, okay, this would be, if we could pull it up in our minds, that would be easy to understand what they're doing. It looks complicated to us, but we do the same thing with our hobbies, with our things like that. People that build things or repair stuff or do things, whatever your task is on a regular basis, at some point, all the pieces and parts, how many of this you need or that, or how many gallons of this. Those things at some point, by memory. You don't have to go read them anymore. This is what they had. They're working these through in their heads. They don't have to sit there and go pull up a Bible and search and count. They could just sit there and go, oh, I remember that story. Yes. Righteous was said 7 times right there, wasn't it? They could do that by memory. I'm having to go through and go. But here's what's helpful. Imagine you're a little kid back then and you're listening to this story and there's these little kludge pings coming at you. What's that? Ooh, that's a lot of repeat there. Hey, that went around in some kind of a circle. Those are all how they're encoding it. And I don't have it all figured out. Only some of it. You can see that. The ideal thing for me would be a way to search this that is not like anything I can find right now. I would like to be able to, instead of just say, search for this word and tell me how many times, I would like to be able to put in there how many words or phrases of, small combination of words only appear 3 times. You don't know the word. It just goes through and says, here's 3 things that are the same, but don't appear anywhere else. That kind of stuff. So that you can start spotting the things that they're using analogs that are very unfamiliar to me. Some of them you look at and go, okay, yeah, that sounds similar to other stuff of the era, but then a lot of it is different. The animals, the birds, the things, all of that, what we have is physical output, mental processes, the birds, coming and haunting or whatever, eating stuff. It's all playing out in the mind. So what are those? What are they assigning those as values of? All I'm doing so far is barely tapping into the 7-3 tie point to the start of the story. The big pieces are there. We can see it starts out empty, all that kind of stuff. At any rate, okay, this is the grid that I want to show, and it continues on. And it's right there. We're carrying it. We're carrying it. We don't look at it the right way, but we're also mentally not in the same place that they were. They could do this as a matter of routine. We don't. We have busy lives full of so many things. We don't have those stories memorized. If we did, we might go, something's weird there. But even then, I didn't see it in the Bible. Not until I went through a lot of myth and other material and learned kind of the spiritual pathway and the template that I began seeing what was going on. And it is so complex. I have reached out to people. Hey, you know that template? People that are into Greek myth or religion everywhere, people will either not respond to you or they tell you, yeah, that's been done to death, buddy. Nobody's got that. The Bible isn't there. Leave it alone. Then you look at this and go, yeah, it is. You don't know how to read it. It's very complicated. It's in a numbering system that's hidden that we have a hard time seeing because we're not hooked into it enough. It is there. It's there in the numbers and the sequence of words. You see how, okay, you put 7 so many times, and then you put how many times are words repeated 7 times, or phrases or something like that I haven't even hit on yet. You have to just start going through word by word searching or something like that. It's slow. You can see that. Anyway, all right. Well, I hope this video was fun and interesting. I'm seeing it more. I'm cracking into it more, and I'm keeping up with the videos because it helps me to continue to see more. And I'm hoping at some point to do this enough to where I can engage with this material in a video where it's a lot more concise. I know I'm still bouncing all over because of the complexity of it and because I'm trying to show what I believe I see, at the same time letting everybody know there's every bit of this is analogous material. What I'm explaining is a very small amount of all the puzzle that's in there. There's more stuff. I can't do it all. It needs puzzle solving brains and people that are familiar with. Yeah. Well, anyway, okay. You see what it takes. You saw what I did. You have to read it and go, that sounds weird. Let's search it and see why. It's always sounded weird, but not until I could search it in a Word document that I go, oh, numbers, repeating sequences all the time, hidden. If it doesn't say 7, it'll say 800 7 times. If it doesn't say 3, it'll say 10th of meeting 3 times. Yeah. But those are just a couple of techniques. There's the one where, the Sodom and Gomorrah, righteous 40 times. Okay, that links up. Then you go to, well, also at farther before that, actually, the flood, where in 7 days I will send. And it looks to me like this. They're happening twice. In 7 days I will, so in 7 days it happened. In 40 days I will, in 40 days it happened. If they do this, I won't, but if they do that, I will. The 2 times seem to be like it's said and then it's confirmed. It's said and then it's confirmed, which that's just a thought I have right now. I have to keep looking at that. It's growing. It's growing. Okay. Hope the video was fun and interesting. I'll still work on Genesis. I'm kind of busy at home with other things right now that keeps me from being too focused on it. So I just jumbled up some stuff together here that I'm looking at, trying to get people to see what I'm talking about with that numbering system. Even if you don't get what the template's about yet, you go, yeah, there's something there in the Bible. It's so thick and so deep. It's hard to understand it in a short period of time. It really has to be worked at to be understood by the person to see what's going on. You have to know what that template is and what they're doing. All right. Hope it was fun. See you in the next video.